Hi guys, welcome to our next prac where we're going to be testing acids and bases and their reactions. The first thing that we're going to go through is our materials. So we need to have two Pyrex test tubes to start with, but you'll also need probably another 4 and the test tube rack. After you've got that, we'll need some dilute hydrochloric acid, and we'll also need some universal indicator. Now be careful with this one because it will stain your clothes and your hands. As well as that, you'll need some an indicator paper with the spectrum on the outside so we can measure pH, which is a measure of how acidic or basic something is. We'll also need some magnesium ribbon, which is cut up into small pieces. So to use those, make sure you use some forceps or tongs. And we'll also need some matches and a taper, which is basically just a broken down paddle pop stick to make it burn quickly. And you also need some other varieties of metal samples, so they'll be available for you. There's all sorts of different ones there. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is take our hydrochloric acid, and we need to add a small amount, so about 2 mils, which again is about the width of your fingernail. So we'll add that to our first test tube. Okay. So a small amount in there, and we need to then add a few drops of our universal indicator. Okay, so as you would tell from our previous cabbage indicator prac, when something goes red, it is a sign that it is quite acidic. So that one is ready to go. So we now need to record the pH of our first solution. So if we hold up our spectrum and match up the colours, we can see that this pH is number 1, which is the lowest one, which means that it's quite strong and quite acidic. So the next thing we have to do is we need to take our magnesium ribbon, and we add one of our pieces of magnesium ribbon into our test tube. Now before you do that, it's probably wise to have a look at the next instruction. So once we've added that, we then need to take our second test tube and put it over the top with a nice seal to try and catch the gas that it makes. So if you are about to do this, make sure that you are ready to go with your second test tube before you add in your magnesium. Put that in there, get our magnesium ready. Okay, so we have our magnesium. I'm going to pop him in there and then get ready to catch the gas that we make. As you can see, it started fizzing, and once it's reacted, it should slow down the fizzing. We then go on with our next step, so we'll just let that keep going. Alright, and then once that's reacted, well, what we're doing by putting our test tube on top is actually collecting the gas that it's making. So our reaction down the bottom is making gas, it's travelling up into our top test tube and we're catching it. And the reason we're catching it is for our next step, it's bubbling away quite nicely in there, and that we're going to try and light the gas that's in our top test tube. So to do that, we're going to need to get someone else in your group, and I have an assistant that's going to come in and help me. Here is my very able assistant. And we have our taper and the matches, so I'm hoping that we've got enough gas in here. So we're carefully going to light the taper. Might take a few goes. Be very careful, make sure you're striking the match away from you. Okay, more quickly. We should hear a bit of a pop.
Pop.
Excellent. Alright, fantastic. The next thing we have to do is to feel the test tube that's containing our acid and the magnesium. And I'm not going to tell you what it feels like, but you'll be able to feel yours.
Oh, that's nice and warm.
Yeah, it's excellent. Alright, and we're going to write down our observations. Okay, also once we've done that, we're going to then test our pH again. So once it's reacted there, we can measure our pH. And you can see it's not quite as bright as it was before, but it's still a very low pH. So you can probably still call that a 1, but you want to write down your observations as well. So you can say that it's a lot lighter in colour. So once you've done that, we then need to record all of our observations, of course, and move on to the next section, which is basically testing other metals. And we're going to do exactly the same thing as we've done there. So with our acid in the first part, adding on our samples of metal. So it might be that you're using tin or iron filings or copper. And we're going to continue on in exactly the same way. Excellent. We might move on to part B.